Now on BBC World News, all you need to know about the big business stories for the week ahead in India Business Report.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of India Business Report. I'm Yogita Lamai, and although it might look like I'm standing in the middle of a palace in Rajasthan, this is actually a set constructed for a Bollywood movie, and today we're taking a look at India's film industry as it celebrates 100 years. Lights, camera, action. A century of Indian cinema. It's passion, it's entertainment, and it's become big, big business. Breaking the box office. What does it take to make a commercial hit?
I have travelled down to Chennai in the south of India to take a look at the Tamil industry, where budgets no longer define the success of a film.
And from the silver screen to the green screen, India's visual effects industry. You may think that the world's movie capital is in Hollywood, but some would say that actually it's right here in India. Over 1,000 films in more than 20 languages are made here every year, and although American movies make more money by sheer numbers of films produced and ticket sales, India is the world's most prolific. Cinema is almost a national obsession, and I've been taking a look at how India's movie scene has evolved over the past century. Moving pictures that silently scripted a new era in India's history. Raja Harishchandra, widely recognized as India's first feature film, was screened in Mumbai 100 years ago. Ever since, cinema has been a national obsession and has grown into a $2 billion industry. It's famous globally for its flamboyant song and dance sequences, and a whole industry has evolved around Bollywood music. And music still remains central to almost all Indian movies. We're on the set of a Bollywood movie, and this crew is about to film one of the hallmarks of Indian cinema. It's a song and dance sequence. Now, studios like this one are always busy because more than 1,000 films are produced in India every year. That's more than anywhere else in the world, even Hollywood.
Just get him.
But film budgets are much smaller compared to the West. Even India's biggest films are produced for roughly a tenth of the cost of Hollywood's most expensive movies. And American films make 20 times more than the entire Indian film industry.
Discovered a man.
More Indian actors are now crossing over to international films, like superstar Amitabh Bachchan, who appears in the latest Hollywood movie, The Great Gatsby, and Anil Kapoor, who acted in Slumdog Millionaire.
Of course, the business, like for example, our films, we celebrate if we do a business of about, maximum about $20 million. And, and $20 million is like peanuts, to a certain extent. Films are doing more than $2.5 billion now.
The past 2 decades have seen bigger budgets, slick production, and exotic overseas locations. Themes and characters have changed to cater to new audiences such as Asian communities abroad.
The entire profile of the hero changed. He became young, jeans clad, playing around and fooling around, and fun guys, they appeal to the diaspora, because when they started making films with the international market in view.
UK, US and UAE are among the biggest export markets for Indian films. And last year, the industry made $140 million from foreign box offices. In India, business has grown by more than 20% in the past year, and over 150 new multiplexes opened up, while 97 traditional single-screen cinema halls shut down. This change in how movies are viewed has also impacted content, allowing it to become more unconventional, varied and niche. Marks 100 years, many are celebrating a turning point in Indian cinema. Mumbai and its landmarks have often been a part of Bollywood films. This is the replica of the famous CST station in Mumbai. The city is the birthplace and home of the Hindi-speaking film industry, and in fact, to commemorate 100 years of Indian films, a movie called Bombay Talkies has been released, made by 4 young and successful Bollywood directors. I spoke to Dipakar Banerjee, Zoya Akhtar, Karan Johar and Anurag Kashyap and asked, given the commercial pressures filmmakers face, what direction they see Indian cinema heading in the future.
Indian cinema is not state funded. It's not government funded. A filmmaker has to take responsibility for the cost that goes into making that film. And which is why a large part of it has to cater to an audience. I like the way we are approaching it. I like the way the indie cinema is getting more edgier and edgier. I like the new platforms that are coming up to bring back our revenues, to cover the cost so that we keep making films.
So when you say direction, what explicitly do you mean in terms of...
I'm saying we are heading in a direction where a filmmaker is becoming an individual who is putting his own take on things as cinema out there on screen. Earlier it was not individualistic. Earlier filmmakers were doing the general thing. They're saying this is what works, let's do this. This is what works. It was just pure commerce and nothing else. It is getting away from there. It is becoming cinematic, artistic, and we are taking the commercial responsibility for it. It is not just pure commerce, because just because a burger sells, every film is not a burger.
Are you as optimistic?
I'm exceptionally optimistic actually, and I believe that there's really now a space and a placement for every kind of film. The cost to profit ratio really is working better for the small great film. I mean really, I think the filmmakers who've made those tiny endeavors, who've gone on to do large numbers, have made more money on that. The large mainstream big scale film will give you the big returns, but eventually you're also paying the most of the deluded members of that cast much more than they deserve. And so at the end of the day, you're not making as much money on those big films.
And where do you see the industry heading? Where do you see films heading? What kind of films do you think are going to be made in the years ahead?
I feel all kinds of films should be made and are being made, and I think that is expanding, that platform. And what's left now, the world's really getting small. I mean, India is funding American studios. It's just, who would have thought that? So it's just a matter of time before there are co-productions. It's a matter of time before we start making films for another audience besides our own. So I think eventually it's going to head there. But as Indians, our own market is, I mean, we're a big brotherhood and we are growing, so we are expanding.
Where do you see it heading? Do you, agree with her where you think that you might actually start making films for an audience that's not Indian necessarily?
It is the largest market in the world, and that's a plus, and that's also a threat. For the last 20 years, Indian economy has changed the country. As a result of it, along with potato chip makers, filmmakers and studios all over the world has also woken up to the fact that there's money to be made off India and made off Indians. What happens in a situation like this is what happened to Europe in the 70s and 80s, when Hollywood moved in en masse and completely killed the diversity of that region in terms of its own films. Today, Europe actually consumes more Hollywood films than films made in Europe. I think over the next 10 years. Just India as a captive market for Hollywood to sell its wares and make more money off us may result in us getting the lion's share of the same cookie cutter trash that Hollywood is inflicting on the rest of the world.
It's time now to take a short break, but stay with us because when we come back... Once sunrise sectors, India's visual effects and animation industries are maturing. But are they doing business at home?
African passion for football is something else. Sometimes you can't help but get caught up in it.
And you know what? I do work for the BBC, but it's time for me to show my true colors. If I can hand this over.
It's an overwhelming moment of beauty, spirit, and pride. And that's when you realize that these people aren't cheering for their team. They're cheering for Africa.
Here's something sports fans can cheer about. The new BBC Sport app is now available on Android and iPhone. Keep up with your favorite sports wherever you are, whenever you want. Check live scores as they happen around the world. Share your top stories. Source results, fixtures, and all the latest breaking news. It's easy to stay up to date with world sports news using the BBC Sport mobile app. Download it now for free.
Welcome back to India Business Report. I'm Yovita Limai, and as Indian cinema celebrates 100 years, we're taking a special look at the film industry. In fact, we're outside one of Mumbai's landmark cinema halls that has screened Hindi movies for more than 6 decades. Now, 2012 was a blockbuster year for Indian cinema as it bounced back after a few years of lackluster performances. It may seem small change compared to the biggest Hollywood successes around the globe, but it was only 5 years ago that the first Indian film to make 1 billion rupees or around $20 million was released. And yet in the last year, 9 films crossed that benchmark in 2012 alone. We asked renowned director and producer Mahesh Bhatt to find out what it takes to make a success at the box office.
Story, story, story. If it's not on the page, it's not on the stage. What is a good story is something that you don't have in your life, you look for in a film. There may be no love in your life, and you go out there looking for an enduring tale of love. You would be, must be living in abject poverty, so you want to escape into that oasis of affluence. Essentially, cinema compensates for what you don't have. Other most important component that you need to make a successful Bollywood film is music. The truth is that if you have great songs in the Indian films, you will certainly surpass your rival, no matter how big the budget of the rival is. Stars have always been one of the most important poster boys to make a film work internationally, and India is no different. But we must never forget that the star by himself is nothing. He's just an empty shell. If you do not give a good story with great music to a star, you will get the audience into the cinema hall, but they'll go away once they have realized that there is no great experience kind of locked in this particular film product. In the 21st century, the Indian filmmaker has woken up to one grim truth, that this is the attention economy age. To grab people's attention is getting progressively more and more difficult. To get people on the opening weekend, the marketing plans have to be really, really strong. And it's getting more and more difficult because the cost of selling your wares is getting more and more expensive on the hour by the hour.
While the bulk of box office collections in India come from Bollywood or Hindi movies, a third of overall revenues come from regional cinema in languages such as Tamil, Telugu and Kannada. With more than 200 films produced every year, the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu is thriving. So what's driving the industry there? Shilpa Kannan travelled to Chennai to find out.
Lights, camera, action, a dance sequence being filmed in the heart of Chennai, home to the Tamil language film industry. A diverse country, India is home to many regional film industries, and Tamil is the biggest outside of Mumbai's Hindi-speaking Bollywood. The industry here is thriving, growing at over 12% annually. Tamil films are going from this, celluloid, to this, which is digital. This process is not just pushing high-end technology like smaller cameras, but more importantly, it's bringing costs down. Distribution today costs just 1/5 of what it used to, but the reach is 5 times as much. So budgets no longer define the success of films here. Like this film, Naduvula Kunjam Pakatha Kanum, which was made for less than $180,000, yet earned over $16 million in just its opening weekend. It was shot in high definition with a small digital SLR camera.
Technology has made movie making affordable. Producers are more willing to invest in small budget movies, even if it is made by first-time directors. It's a good time to be in this industry.
In regional cinema, the storylines too have been more experimental, as directors here can afford to take more risks. Like upcoming film Marian, which was filmed extensively in Africa and southern India. It follows the true story of a worker kidnapped by child soldiers in Sudan and his journey back to India.
Tamil cinema among Indian cinema, I'll call it, has been one of the most courageous platforms. For example, a weekend you can have a mega star of Tamil movie releasing, and on the same weekend you could have a first-time actors movie releasing. And if the content is good, I'm sure that the first-time actors movie will be a super hit compared to the mega star. So it's not a given thing.
Thanks to music, satellite rights, DVD and ticket sales, there are more revenue-earning opportunities. But by keeping their budgets tight or by spinning stories that audiences can relate to, regional film industry seem to be hitting a higher note.
Well, it's not just screens in India. Bollywood and Indian-made films have been expanding their reach overseas too. Last year, the industry made $140 million from foreign box offices. Long popular with the diaspora community, the US, UK and UAE are by far the largest export markets for Indian films. Our correspondents from around the world have more.
Outside of India, there are few places as obsessed with Bollywood as here in the United Arab Emirates. And that's largely due to the Indian expat community, which makes up about 30% of the population, doing jobs from construction to banking. Now, this cinema behind me is one which specialises in showing Indian films. But most people here prefer to watch their movies in the multiplexes found in shopping centres, and it's not uncommon to find at least half the screens there showing Bollywood hits. In fact, because the weekend starts here on a Thursday night rather than a Friday, many people in the UAE get to see films before they open in Delhi or Mumbai. And it's not just about Indian audiences. This is the gateway to the Middle East. And Bollywood's big with Gulf nationals too, with TV channels specialising in Indian films dubbed into Arabic. And with a diverse, multicultural population, the UAE is often used by Bollywood for an indication of how a film's going to do overseas.
I'm standing at Gulistan Cinema in Lahore, where Indian film Ek Sidan is being displayed. It is not Gulistan alone. At the moment, 6 more cinemas in Lahore are showing Indian films. In the past, there was ban on exhibiting Hindi films in Pakistan, but the ban was lifted in 2006, and since then, Pakistan has become a huge market for Bollywood blockbusters, with dozens of movies releasing every year. To some extent, it has hurt Pakistan's own film industry, but on the other hand, cinema in Pakistan has revived due to Indian films. And officials of Film Exhibitor Association of Pakistan say that their business has grown almost 70% after the ban has been lifted.
In America, there's a big appetite for Bollywood movies at cinemas like this one, right in the heart of New York City. Hardly surprising when you consider that, according to one estimate, more than 3 million US citizens are of Indian ancestry. When it comes to watching Bollywood movies in America, the vast majority of the audience is South Asian. Last year, it was estimated that $20 million was generated by Bollywood cinema in the United States. Now, that might sound like a sizable figure, but it's a tiny fraction of what Hollywood earns annually. Most Americans know very little about Indian cinema. If a movie god like Amitabh Bachchan was to walk along the street right now here in New York, hardly anyone would recognize him. Some Indian actors do make it into Hollywood studio films, but very few. So when it comes to conquering America, Indian cinema still has a long way to go.
In the past decade, India has grown as a hub for visual effects and animation. As both are labor-intensive and technology-driven fields, India has held a competitive advantage and has become popular as an outsourcing destination for overseas firms. But as the sunrise sector matures, there have been challenges too. So how is it faring? Adrian Murray has been finding out.
Bolder and more spectacular than ever, Indian movie houses are enhancing their viewers' experience by using visual effects. Skilled technicians painstakingly erase stunt wires, add minute details, and conjure up imaginative characters. Converting movies into 3D is another growing stream of business. It's technology-intensive, labour-intensive work. So lower costs in India give it a competitive edge.
From just doing basic, very labor-intensive work, today we are doing very detailed, very tricky, complete sequences, complete films, where we're doing not only just basic compositing work, but we're also doing stuff like creatures, where we're doing alien characters or robots or stuff like that. We've moved ourselves right up the value chain today.
India's visual effects segment has grown by 35% over the last 5 years, according to KPMG, and it's now among the world's biggest hubs. More than half of the work is outsourced from overseas, though. And while Indian movies are driving up home demand, their budgets are a fraction of up to $9 million that Hollywood productions spend on visual effects. The popularity of 3D movies is a trend India's animators are also banking on. Delhi Safari began life in ordinary 2D, but evolved into a 3D project. It follows the adventures of a group of animals whose forest is threatened by builders. India's animation segment is also dominated by outsourcing work. Few animated features are made at home. For production companies, the challenge is reaching India's potential audience.
If you look at the last year's animation films, the top 10 films are all Hollywood films. Why? Because they have the budgets to market it. The budget of an Ice Age or a Madagascar or a Happy Feet or whatever, whichever the relevant animation films that are being shown in the Hollywood animation films, is the budget I had to make the film.
No longer nascent industries, competition in these segments is fierce, both at home and increasingly from other Asian countries. Experts say the challenge will be developing high-skilled staff and taking on sophisticated projects to help win higher value business.
Well, it's time to go now, but we hope you enjoyed this week's special program, and do join us again same time next week. In the meantime, for the latest business news, check out our website at bbc.com/business, and for more coverage from India, go to bbc.com/India. I'm Yogita Lamai in Mumbai, and from everyone on the team, thanks for watching. Goodbye.